How's it going, my peeps? It is now time for the Money in the Bank 2014 results / highlights and review video. I'll go over the results, some of the highlights in my opinion, and give you guys my thoughts, my review on the show. So it kicks off, of course, with the pre-show. They hype up all the matches, show a cool video package for the WWE World Heavyweight Championship ladder match. And, the superstar panel this time was actually Renee Young, Christian, Booker T, and Alex Riley. That's right, Christian made his return, or at least, in the superstar panel. They all gave their picks, their predictions for the ladder match. And then later on, Michael Cole interviewed Daniel Bryan in the ring. And pretty much the important part is Daniel Bryan delivered some bad news, saying that he doesn't know when he's going to be able to return. And there's talk of him having another surgery, but he says he will return, and when he does, he'll come back better than ever. And then he answers a few Twitter questions like who he thinks, is going to win the ladder match for the championship, this and that. And then all of a sudden, Bo Dallas interrupts. He comes out, and he goes over how Daniel Bryan can compete, and then he's like, oh gosh, that must be a pain in the neck. And then he tells Daniel Bryan not to worry, he might not be able to climb the ladder tonight, but life is not about, the destination, it's about the journey, and to BoLeave. And then Daniel Bryan goes up to, Bo Dallas and tells him, I appreciate your concern, but you're acting like a boner. And then the crowd actually starts chanting boner. And then Daniel Bryan tells him, and I think I speak for everybody when I tell you to BoLeave, and then he actually points, out towards the outside of the ring, signaling for Bo Dallas to leave. And then Bo Dallas actually leaves the ring, and Daniel Bryan's music hits, and, he does the yes chant along with the crowd, and that's it for that. Afterwards, the pre-show panel hype up the show a bit more. Oh yeah, and also something I forgot, Byron Saxton interviewed Roman Reigns about pretty much his strategy for the match, going over how, Roman Reigns said he would assess the situation and attack. Reigns says basically he's gonna attack, and then climb up the ladder and, grab the championship. And then, at the end of the pre-show, we get the Wyatt family signal, then we see Luke Harper telling the Usos that their time is running out, and then he says, tick-tock, tick-tock. And then the camera pans to Erick Rowan, who's wearing the mask, and he just says, run. And then that was it for the pre-show, and then the actual show kicks off with the Tag Team Championship match, the Usos versus Luke Harper and Erick Rowan. Usos come out first, followed by the Wyatt family, and they've got a new theme song now. It starts off with the little kids singing He's Got the Whole World in His Hands, and then afterwards it's like a new theme song. It's not the same one they had on Raw. It's better in my opinion. So, anyways, as far as the match goes, it was a pretty good match actually, pretty entertaining match, especially towards the end. But, that's the case with most, tag team matches. They really shine towards the end. So, yeah, there was a bunch of cool spots in there. Like, at some point, you had one of the Usos go ahead and do one of their jumps from inside the ring to the outside onto Luke Harper. He hits it. And then the other Uso tries to go for it on Erick Rowan while Luke Harper goes back in the ring. And then, so Luke Harper in the ring, he runs and bounces off the ropes while the other Uso tries to jump on top of Erick Rowan on the outside, but Erick Rowan catches him, and then he just grabs him for Luke Harper to hit the suicide dive on, and then they put him back in the ring, and in the ring, they hit some sort of double chokeslam, and at that point I thought it was actually over. I thought the Wyatt family would be winning, but Jey Uso actually came in for the save and broke the pin. And then eventually Erick Rowan was the legal man, and, Erick Rowan and Jimmy Uso, and Erick Rowan decides to go for a top rope splash or something like that. He climbs up the turnbuckle, and everybody's wondering what's he gonna go for. But, Jimmy Uso catches up to him, he punches him a couple times in the turnbuckle, and then Jey Uso also comes in, and they hit a superplex on Erick Rowan, and then Jimmy Uso climbs up the top turnbuckle, hits a splash on Erick Rowan, but right before he hit the splash, Jey Uso also tagged himself in, so he also climbed up the top turnbuckle, hit another splash, so 2 splashes in a row onto Erick Rowan. He covers him, gets the 3 count, and the Usos retain, to my surprise. I was expecting the Wyatt family to win. Even so, that when they hit that double splash, or that, 2 splashes two splashes in a row, I was almost expecting Luke Harper to interfere and break the pin, because I really didn't think the Usos were going to retain. But yeah, good match. After that, we get a promo from Dean Ambrose, and throughout the promo, he's calling Seth Rollins, or calling Triple H, Seth Rollins' daddy, and basically telling the people that he's going to win the ladder match. And then after that, it was time for the Divas Championship match, Paige versus Naomi. Now, throughout the match, by the way, Cameron was at ringside along with Naomi. Well, Naomi was at ringside. Well, Naomi was in the match, but Cameron was at ringside. And throughout the match, whenever Paige would get some offense on Naomi, Cameron would smile. She'd look happy. But when Naomi would get some offense in and looked like she was about to win, Cameron didn't look too happy. And actually, Naomi hit the rear view in the match, and Paige actually kicked out at 2. And at some points, it looked like Naomi was maybe going to win the match. She hit also a split-legged moonsault, but Paige got her knees up. And shortly after that, Paige countered Naomi's attempt at a reverse DDT, I believe, into a cradle DDT, covered her, and won the match. After the match, Cameron goes in the ring and checks on Naomi. And like I said, throughout the match, also on commentary, they were pointing out that, hey, Cameron, she looks happy when Naomi isn't doing too well in the match or something like that. But anyways, afterwards, Damien Sandow came out as a new character. This time it was Revere, and he made fun of the hometown crowd. And then Adam Rose comes out, he tries to attack him, but when he tries to attack him, Adam Rose was on the apron, so Adam Rose just falls on top of the rosebuds before Damien Sandow could hit him. And then Adam Rose gets in the ring, they have a match, and at some point, I actually thought Damien Sandow was going to win it, that he was going to turn this streak around, or losing streak around, when he hit the full Nelson Slam. But actually, Adam Rose kicked out, and then eventually Adam Rose hits his finisher. I believe it's called the Party Foul, and he wins the match. And then after that, it came time for the Money in the Bank ladder match, and they announced before the match that Bad News Barrett will not be competing. They also announced it actually on the pre-show. So it's a 6-man ladder match instead of 7 now. And yeah, before the match, they did something like the Royal Rumble, where before this year's Rumble, they had a bunch of superstars speak and talk about how they're going to win the match or why they're going to win the match. They had the same thing, every single superstar saying why they're going to win the match. Seth Rollins saying because plan A for the Authority is for him to win the match, and plan B, they always have a plan B, and plan B is him winning the match too. They all talk except for Ambrose, I guess because Ambrose, had a promo beforehand. So, yeah, first to come out is Seth Rollins, and then the others come out, and the last one to make, his entrance is Dean Ambrose, and he runs right away towards the ring, towards Rollins, and brawls with Rollins. And then, this match was awesome. It was a great match, filled with some cool spots. I'm just going to name a few of them, give you guys the highlights of the match. Now, I'm probably going to miss a few of them, but, I'm going to tell you which ones I remember, and which ones I thought were pretty cool. Right in the beginning of the match, you had Kofi Kingston climb up the ladder, and Dean Ambrose gets back in the ring, and he pushes Kofi off the ladder. He pushes the ladder off, or pushes the ladder to try and, take it down, and Kofi's on it, so Kofi falls off the ladder, but he lands right on the top rope, and from there, he springboards from there onto the outside, unlike Swagger and a bunch of the other participants in the match. That was pretty cool. Kofi Kingston is known, for, pulling off some pretty cool maneuvers. Nice to see that he's got some new ones up his sleeve. And also, man, at some point, you had Swagger hit a powerbomb from the ladder, and this was a pretty long ladder. It wasn't, one of the smaller ladders. It was like the tallest ladder there. He had a powerbomb from there, like I said. Initially, it looked like Rob Van Dam was going to go for a 5-star frog splash on Jack Swagger from that ladder because he pushed him off of it. But then Seth Rollins came from behind Rob Van Dam, and he was punching him. But then RVD got rid of Seth Rollins, or just momentarily got rid of him. And then Jack Swagger got time to get up and hit the powerbomb. And then after he hits the powerbomb, Dean Ambrose comes in, and he actually hits a superplex from the ladder on Seth Rollins, onto the mat. So 2, brutal spots in a row from the top of that ladder. You also had Ambrose hit a butterfly suplex on Seth Rollins on the ladder. You had Rob Van Dam set up a ladder in a pretty unique way on the bottom ropes, on like both sides of the bottom ropes, like 2 bottom ropes, and then putting Seth Rollins on there and hitting the Rolling Thunder on it. You also had Dolph Ziggler hitting the zigzag on the ladder, and at some point in the match, Ambrose was trying to climb up the ladder, and Jack Swagger grabbed him and tried to pull him off the ladder, but instead Dean Ambrose countered Jack Swagger's attempt at pulling him off the ladder into a DDT from the ladder. And then from then on, like, Dean Ambrose was selling his shoulder, and then you get like some medics checking on Ambrose and a referee, and then the referee does the X sign. So I wasn't sure if Ambrose was legit hurt or not, so I guess he did a good job at selling it. And then, they tell him to, I guess, go to the back, and Ambrose is like, no, if you have to, I'll pump it back in, or something like that, talking about his shoulder. But eventually he goes to the back, and, he's raging. And then Seth Rollins, he sees that, so right away he tries to climb up the ladder to grab the briefcase. And eventually, he gets on the ladder along with Rob Van Dam, so they're fighting it out. And then Kofi, who's on the outside, grabs another ladder, and he places it in between, I think he put it actually on the top rope, and in between the rungs of the ladder. And then he gets on top of it, and he's behind Rob Van Dam at this point. Rob Van Dam falls off, and then Kofi fights it out with Seth Rollins. And then, at this point, both Kofi and Seth Rollins are on the actual ladder. Not the ladder that's, in between the rungs of the ladder, the steps of the ladder. They're both, on the ladder that's set up. And Kofi Kingston backdrops Seth Rollins from the ladder onto the other ladder that he set up. And it was a pretty bad landing where, first off, Seth Rollins falls, back first onto the ladder, but then the ladder bounces and falls on one side, and when Seth Rollins also falls with the ladder, he bumps his head onto the other ladder. And after that, we saw Kofi reach up for the briefcase, and it looked like nobody else was there, so it looked like Kofi might win the briefcase, might win the match. And the crowd was cheering, but Dolph Ziggler takes him off the ladder, so they might have been cheering because Dolph appeared or something. And Dolph takes out Kofi, and he starts climbing up the ladder, but then Jack Swagger grabs him from the ankle and locks in the Patriot Lock. But despite that, Dolph still continues on climbing up, and eventually he kicks Swagger off, but then Seth Rollins, he gets back in the ring with a steel chair, and he hits Dolph with the chair, taking him off the ladder, and then he starts climbing up the ladder, and then you see the entire crowd, get loud and cheer, because Ambrose is now running back to the ring, and he grabs the chair, and he hits Seth Rollins. He hits him a bunch of times in the back with the chair, several chair shots like Seth Rollins did to Dean Ambrose when he turned on the Shield. And then Ambrose climbs up the ladder, and I see in the corner, like in the corner of the camera, or in the corner of the screen, you see a referee very quickly grab Zeb Coulter and take him out of the way. Like Zeb Coulter was at ringside, you see him grab Zeb Coulter, and then they're out of the camera zone, or out of view. And they're like, what? Something's gotta happen here. Why did he, grab Zeb Coulter and take him out of the way? And then a few seconds afterwards, I found out why, because Kane's pyros go off, and then Kane comes out, and he goes after Ambrose, takes him off the ladder, chokeslams him, and then hits the tombstone piledriver on Ambrose. And Seth Rollins then gets back in the ring, climbs up the ladder while Kane is holding it up for him, and grabs the briefcase. So Seth Rollins wins the match with some help from Kane. Crowd was really behind Ambrose. They were also behind Dolph Ziggler, Kofi Kingston, pretty much all the faces. And it was a really entertaining match. Despite the interference at the end, it was still a great match. You can't take that away from the match, even if you didn't like the ending. There were so many cool spots in the match. This was definitely one of the better Money in the Bank matches. And then after Rollins' victory, Triple H and Stephanie McMahon come out and they celebrate with Rollins on the stage. And after that, Byron Saxton interviews Randy about his chances in the Money in the Bank, and not the Money in the Bank match, but the WWE World Heavyweight Championship ladder match. And Randy talks about that, and then he gets asked about what just happened with Seth Rollins and Kane helping him out. Randy says that, Seth Rollins is a great competitor, but at this point in his career, he needs all the help he can get. He, though, on the other hand, doesn't need any help, and he's going to win the championship on his own. And at that point, I'm thinking, like, what? I mean, didn't Randy need Kane's help on SmackDown, to grab the titles? And isn't that the reason why Kane is in the match? But anyways, Byron Saxton then asks Randy about Roman Reigns, and Randy pretty much doesn't respond and just looks at him and leaves. Following that, it was a tag team match, Goldust and Stardust versus Ryback and Curtis Axel. And Curtis Axel actually right now he's got like this new ring attire. It's a singlet, kind of like Ryback and kind of like, Mr. Perfect. But it just looks odd on Curtis Axel. It looks weird. Like it doesn't. I don't know. Maybe it's just gonna take time to get used to it. But it just looked weird. But anyways, Goldust and Stardust end up winning the match. And actually, during the match, Stardust went for Crossroads. I thought maybe he was gonna use another finisher possibly, since he used another finisher on Raw. But he went for Crossroads and he hit it. Actually countered the Shell Shock and then hit Crossroads. On Ryback, goes for the cover, Curtis Axel breaks the pin, and then Curtis Axel tries to attack Stardust. Stardust gets out of the way, so Axel hits Ryback instead, and then Stardust rolls up Ryback, gets the 3 count, and wins the match. Afterwards, Axel, upset with the loss, he decides to attack Stardust, but Goldust comes in for the save. And Goldust and Stardust, like I said, win the match and celebrate afterwards. And then it was time for Rusev versus Big E, a match I was looking forward to. And I was hoping it'd be longer than Payback, and I do believe it was longer than Payback. At least it felt longer. You had Big E once again hit the spear or shoulder tackle, whatever you want to call it, in between the ropes with, Rusev on the apron and Big E on the inside of the ring. And then, he sends him to the outside with that spear. And damn, Rusev, it looked like it really knocked the wind out of Rusev when he hit that. Like, Rusev really looked like he was, gasping for air. He was holding his stomach and he was like, oh. It looked like it was a pretty bad landing for Rusev. More so, than the last time they did it at Payback. And then once he gets Rusev back in the ring, He's preparing for the big ending, but Rusev, anticipating it, instead he rolls out the ring, or actually rolls onto the apron, and then he gets up, Big E goes after him, but Rusev actually kicks him in the head while still on the apron, and then he gets back in the ring and hits a super kick on Big E, and then he catches his breath a bit, because it still looks like he's hurting from that spot. But eventually, he stops, Big E's back, and then locks in the accolade, but this time Big E lasts longer in the accolade. He doesn't tap out right away or anything. It actually looked like he was gonna get out of it when he started slowly getting up with Rusev on his back, but eventually it ends up just being too much for Big E, and Rusev locks it in more tightly, and he ends up tapping out. So Rusev wins the match. And even after the match was over, Rusev still kept the accolade locked in, but then eventually he let go. And after the match, there was a backstage segment where you saw Nikki Bella and Brie Bella, and then Stephanie McMahon comes up to Nikki Bella and Brie Bella and tells her what, Brie's doing here, telling her that, only authorized personnel or authorized people are supposed to be backstage or can be backstage. And then Brie Bella tells Stephanie, oh, don't worry, I was just showing my sister here my new favorite video, and then she shows Stephanie on her phone. It's basically the video of Vicky Guerrero grabbing Stephanie and throwing her in that pool of mud, or whatever it was supposed to be. And then Stephanie doesn't approve of that, she gets mad, so she tells security to escort Brie Bella out of the ring. Not out of the ring, out of the arena. And then Brie Bella tells Stephanie that she's just gonna leave. And also, there was a backstage segment with Fandango, Summer Rae, and Layla, and Summer Rae and Layla were arguing why Fandango loves, them instead of the other or whatever, and Fandango just tells them to settle it in the ring. So then it comes time for the Summer Rae and Layla match with Fandango as the special guest referee. It was a really short match, and throughout the match they would get distracted with Fandango, and because of that, the other diva would take advantage. And also Fandango, at some point, in the match. In the turnbuckle, Layla was on the turnbuckle in the corner, and Summer Rae was doing, the thing where she, doesn't kick Layla, but she, puts her boot, against her chin or whatever, and Fandango was staring at Summer Rae's legs, and then Layla puts on a submission hold on Summer Rae. It looked like maybe a modified figure 4, and Fandango was there, and he was shaking his hips while, she was locking on the submission. Eventually, though, Layla hits a kick to the head to Summer Rae, covers her, and wins the match. And then Fandango just gets out of the ring along with Layla, and they make out, and that's it for that. And Summer Rae was crying in the ring. And then following that, it was time for the main event, the match for the WWE World Heavyweight Championship, the ladder match. Now, when it came to this ladder match, it wasn't as quickly action-packed in the beginning as the previous ladder match, the Money in the Bank ladder match. This one started off a bit slow, but then it started to pick up, and also Kane was pretty dominant in the match, actually. At some point, it was just like Raw, where he took out everybody with chokeslams. And he actually never went for the championship himself. He actually just helped Randy Orton out. At some point, I was thinking maybe he turns on Randy, or Randy accidentally hits him, so Kane snaps and decides to go for the championship himself or something. But no, that didn't happen. He was just helping out Randy the entire time. Speaking of Randy, he got busted open in the head pretty bad. He was bleeding pretty bad, especially in the ends. And the reason for that is Kane was holding up a ladder for Randy. Randy was climbing up that ladder, and then Roman Reigns pushes Kane, so Randy falls off the ladder. He falls off the ladder first, and then Kane, because Roman Reigns pushed him, he, pushes the ladder, and the ladder falls on top of Randy's head, and then he was busted open, and we didn't see him for a few minutes, and then we saw him afterwards on the outside, after getting patted down or whatever with a towel, but, it was still bleeding, afterwards. Now, a couple spots in the match. You had Cesaro and Sheamus both on top of the ladder, both trying to get the championship, and I think this happened twice. First time around, they're both grabbing the championship, and somebody pushes the ladder away, so they're both hanging on to the championships. One is hanging on to the World Heavyweight Championship, and the other's hanging on to the WWE Championship. And then Cesaro punches Sheamus, and Sheamus falls down, and then Cesaro ends up falling down himself. And then the second time they went for the championships, this time, somebody had put a ladder in between, kind of like Kofi did, but somebody had put a ladder in between the steps of the ladder. And the same ladder that Cesaro and Sheamus are on. And they put the steps on the side where Cesaro is. Now, this is going to be pretty hard for me to explain, but I'll try and explain it the best I can. So, like I said, somebody puts a ladder in between the steps of the ladder Cesaro and Sheamus are on while they're trying to grab the championship. And then, Roman Reigns gets in the ring, and he grabs the ladder from the bottom of the ladder, not the ladder that's in between the steps of the ladder that Cesaro and Sheamus are on, but the actual ladder that Sheamus and Cesaro are on. He grabs it from, the bottom of it, and he starts lifting it up. So then, he lifts it up until they, fall. Well, not exactly fall, but the ladder pretty much is balanced now on that other ladder that was in between the steps. Because now the other ladder is on the mat, and the ladder that Sheamus and Cesaro are on is it isn't straight anymore. They're standing up, they're still on the ladder, but the ladder is now in a diagonal position. And they're still on the ladder. They're able to not fall down. They're grabbing onto the ladder, and Sheamus is trying to grab the championship because the championship is on his side. So Cesaro actually is able to get on the other side where Sheamus is, and now they're both trying to grab the championships. And the only thing supporting this ladder right now is that other ladder in between the steps that is now, on the mat. Or part of, the other side is on the mat, while the other side is in between the steps. So then John Cena gets in the ring, and he grabs the ladder, not the ladder that Sheamus and Cesaro are on, but the one that's balancing it, and he lifts it up, so now the ladder is back to being straight again. So that was pretty cool. I think it's the first time we've ever seen something like that. And as far as other spots involving a ladder, well, you had Randy hitting the DDT from the ladder, and not with the ladder set up, straight. It was he put the ladder in between, like on the announcer's table and the apron, and Sheamus was on it, and he hit the DDT from there onto the floor. At some point, John Cena, he went for the attitude adjustment on Roman Reigns. Crowd was booing, and all of a sudden Roman Reigns gets out of it, and he hits a spear on Cena, and then the crowd cheers. And then Reigns tries to climb up the ladder, but Randy stops him with his backbreaker, signature backbreaker from the ladder, and Randy climbs up, but this time Bray Wyatt gets in, and he hits Sister Abigail. He takes Randy off the ladder, hits Sister Abigail on him, and the crowd goes nuts. Bray Wyatt tries to climb up the ladder, but he gets stopped by Del Rio. Del Rio tries to climb up. Sheamus stops him. He hits the bro kick. And then Sheamus climbs up the ladder, but this time Cesaro tries to stop him. He takes him off the ladder and hits an uppercut on Sheamus. And then Cesaro decides to climb up, and you can, figure out that somebody else is about to go for a finisher on him too. And yes, Randy pulls him off the ladder and in midair hits an RKO, kind of like he did to Rob Van Dam in the last Money in the Bank ladder match he was in last year. But I believe this one was actually better. And then after that, Randy starts climbing up, and at this point, this is where he's really, he's really bleeding a lot. You can see the blood on his, not only on his head now, but also on his forehead. And he's climbing up the ladder. Reigns gets in the ring, and he climbs up the ladder too from the same spot Orton's on, so the same side. And he grabs Orton by the head, and he headbutts him a couple times. And then Orton falls down, but then Kane comes in, and he chokeslams Reigns off the ladder. But, Reigns wasn't, really high up on the ladder or anything. But still, it was a chokeslam off the ladder somewhat. And then Kane, motions for Randy to climb up. So Randy starts climbing up, John Cena gets in, he hits an attitude adjustment on Kane, and then he pulls Randy off the ladder and hits him with an attitude adjustment, but this time actually he hits the attitude adjustment on Kane. Like he hits it on Orton, but Randy lands on Kane. And then Cena quickly climbs up the ladder, grabs the championships, and wins the match. And you can see the Authority looking disappointed that John Cena won. John Cena then celebrates, he climbs up the top turnbuckle, poses with the championships while also doing the "You Can't See Me" taunt to the Authority, who were sitting actually on commentary or on the announcer's table. They weren't doing any commentary, but they were sitting next to the announcer's table. And that was pretty much it for the match. Another spot, though, I almost forgot to mention, is while the ladder was in between the other ladder, Bray Wyatt grabbed Cena and he hit a suplex on Cena onto that ladder. The same suplex he hit on Cena through the table at Payback in the Last Man Standing match. So, that's pretty much sums up, the entire show. Highlights, most of the highlights, man, came from the first Money in the Bank match. Well, actually, the only Money in the Bank match. I'm just used to calling, the ladder matches on the Money in the Bank show, both Money in the Bank ladder matches, since, for the past couple of years, we've had 2 Money in the Bank ladder matches, but this year, there was only one, and the other one was for the title. But yeah, match of the night also would have to be, in my opinion, the Money in the Bank ladder match. It was full of cool and new spots. I loved the one where Kofi was on the ladder and then Ambrose pushes him off. I'm expecting Kofi, to just fall on the ropes or something like that, fall on the mats. But no, it was awesome. He freaking lands straight on the ropes, springboards from there to the outside onto, like Jack Swagger, RVD, and a bunch of other, superstars in the match. Crowd was really behind Ambrose in that match. He was, I'd say, the one with, the biggest pop. The crowd was behind him the most. And then as far as Dolph and Kofi, I'd say they were pretty equal. When Kofi was, up top, after backdropping Seth Rollins onto that ladder, it looked like he might win the match, and the crowd was cheering for him. But at the same time, a few seconds afterwards, Dolph came in and took Kofi off the ladder. So it could be that they were cheering for Dolph getting in the ring. But, the camera was focused on Kofi, so, I saw Kofi reaching up for the briefcase and the crowd going wild. But overall, I thought it was a good show. I enjoyed the Divas match. I think this was Paige's best title defense yet. And, like I said, match of the night for me, Money in the Bank ladder match. And the show had a good opening match, although I was hoping the Wyatt family would win. I could see maybe them having a rematch now at Battleground with the Wyatt family possibly getting the win that time. And also, the last match, the main event, it was a good match, but I just didn't think it was as good as, the first ladder match of the show. But to be honest, going into the main event ladder match, I wasn't expecting it to top the Money in the Bank ladder match. And if I were to rank the top 3 matches on tonight's show, I'd probably go number 1, Money in the Bank ladder match, number 2, the main event ladder match for the championship, and number 3, the Usos versus the Wyatt family. And as far as a rating for tonight's show, I think I'd give it a 7.5 to 8 on 10, around that range. So, I hope you guys enjoyed this video, and if you did, as always, can click that like button down below. I'd really appreciate it. And in the comments section below, tell me what you guys thought of Money in the Bank, and what was your match of the night. Which match did you enjoy the most? With that said, I'm out, guys. See ya.